This episode is brought to you by TriStar Trust Bank. Recently, we presented our 20th episode of the Saginaw Art Museum podcast series, Art at Home. In this series, we've spoken with artists and art-minded individuals about the way they have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we hear from Saginaw Art Museum and Temple Theater's Executive Director, Mike Kolleth. Following our discussion, some previous guests have provided updates about how things are progressing in their creative pursuits. You can listen back to previous episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. We look forward to continuing to bring excellent conversations to the forefront of our community. We are here today with Mike Kolleth. He is the Executive Director of the Saginaw Art Museum and the Temple Theater. And Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Thor. Big fan. I've listened to all of them so far, so I'm your biggest fan, perhaps.
Well, we're on the home court, so to speak, here today.
Indeed.
But I thought it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about the museum's plans for reopening and how things are progressing so far, and a little bit of a perspective as a cultural arts organization. So tell me a little bit about the plans here. Absolutely.
Well, Thor, since the pandemic hit, there's been a lot of uncertainty, obviously, throughout society, but also across the arts and entertainment community in terms of what the path forward is going to be like, how people are going to interact with their cultural properties, shall we say, during the pandemic and as we move out of it. I had the privilege to serve on the Governor's Committee on Arts and Culture for reopening. So I was involved in that process of kind of helping make recommendations on how museums and libraries and other organizations should open up after the pandemic. And so, in that sense, kind of had a front row seat to what others were thinking, and maybe that's kind of shaped how we're thinking here at the museum. So, as you know, we have been given the authority by the governor to reopen, and we have done so. Like a lot of other museums, we waited a little while. We waited probably about a month after we got the green light to go ahead and open up, because we wanted to get our house in order, literally and figuratively, in terms of getting our programs for sanitizing the facility down, our programs for really accommodating our visitors in a safe way as well. On the Arts and Culture Committee, one of the things that we followed very closely were the patterns of patronage that occurred after some museums had opened up. Obviously, in Asia Pacific, they were a little bit ahead of us in terms of the curve and flattening that curve. And some of those museums and cultural institutions have opened up, and they found that in general, people were not flocking back to indoor activities. And in some cases, they were seeing reductions of visitors by 80 to 90% in the first couple months of reopening. So we also wanted to factor that in, knowing that people weren't going to come back necessarily in droves, at least until the pandemic is safely over, or until we're a little bit further down that state reopening plan. And ever since the reopening authorization came through, I've been going out to museums really on a weekly basis to find out how they're managing it, how they're opening, how they're handling the safety of their visitors. And I will say that most people have seen fairly dramatic reductions in visitors, at least in this first month. Now, if our pattern is anything like it is in Asia Pacific, we'll start to see those numbers eventually ramp up. And that's one of the reasons why it makes sense to open up now, is so that we can grow back with our audience as their willingness to re-engage starts to increase.
Yeah, and sort of that difference between here at the Art Museum and the Temple Theater is a little different as well. Can you sort of speak to the Temple Theater side of our arts and culture here?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we are not allowed to have any theatrical productions at the Temple. And even if we could, given the restrictions on audience sizes, it's very difficult to do so from a financial perspective. We have taken the shows that were going to be part of our 2021 calendar and moved as many as possible into early 2021. And we are taking almost a week-to-week look at those to see if the pandemic is going to allow us to get back and open that beautiful theater as quickly as we can. We're not alone in this, of course, Thor. I just got off, literally 10 minutes ago, a meeting with the other leaders of arts organizations in the Great Lakes Bay region, and most of them are doing pretty much the same thing. They're looking at early 2021 as a target date to restart, and we can't wait.
Yeah, and on this podcast, we've talked to a lot of artists about creative ways that they have coped with unusual circumstances. And as an organization, how do you see that happening here at the museum, at the temple, throughout the community?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, and this is a credit to you and the podcast as part of this. One of the things I think we've been very, very cognizant of is the need to keep our brand very strong and in front of the public during this whole thing. And we've certainly done that through things like the podcast, the Spark Music Camp at the temple. And we had, I can't remember exactly what we called it. Every day we would focus on a piece of art in the morning and just kind of keeping people active and engaged with the temple brand and the Saginaw Art Museum brand. Social media has proven to be a godsend in this environment, the ultimate low to no touch environment. And by virtue of being an art museum and a theater, we have a lot of good content, or the opportunity to develop a lot of content. So that's been our primary mode of interaction with the public at this point. And it will continue to do so until we really have a very clear path back to full operations again, which we hope to get to as soon as possible.
Yeah. For community members who are looking for ways to help or become engaged, how can they do that during this sort of unusual period?
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple things you can do, or anybody can do, and this is I guess independent of COVID-19. We are always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for dedicated people who love art and want to get involved at our beautiful facility here at the museum. And we're always looking for ushers and volunteers at the temple. One of the things we've been focusing on here at the museum is providing the safest possible environment for anybody who wants to volunteer. And I think what's been very interesting is we're seeing people coming in, new volunteers who want to get back out, who want to break out again and start interacting with the public, but to do so in a safe environment, in a controlled environment. And this is a great opportunity for people to do that. So volunteering is probably number one on my list. A very close second, and very near and dear to my heart, is like every arts organization, we've been stung financially by COVID. A lot of our funding sources and our sponsorships have been impacted, and our ability to operate on budgets that would keep us going in a way that makes our community proud and makes us proud. That's all being impacted. So we are going to be doing a number of fundraisers, and people can get involved in those at really any level. I know one of the things that you and I have been talking about is something called the 100 for 100. So we're looking for 100 people just to donate $100. And in doing so, raise $10,000, and that does a tremendous amount for us here at the museum. It also helps us start to build a base of people who are interested in potentially volunteering or engaging in the museum in another way. And we'll probably do something very similar for the Temple Theater. We will not be able to do our annual fundraiser, Cheeseburgers in Margaritaville, here in person at the museum, but we're going to do something online where we're going to be auctioning off some items. I think we're calling it right now Cheeseburgers in Quarantine, which doesn't sound quite as appetizing, but you work with what you have.
Right. Yeah. Sort of in closing here, tell me a little bit about how you see things playing out in the long term, sort of the long view. Here at the museum, we have a collection of art that spans centuries. And part of our mission is the preservation and the collection and education about that art. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have three things that I want to accomplish while I'm executive director here. And this applies equally to the Art Museum and the Temple. So take this as you will and apply it to both, but I think it's very relevant. First and foremost is I want to make sure that both of these institutions are reflections of our community, who we are, who we strive to be, and really are a place where people can go and feel that the institutions are who we are. And I think we have a journey that we have to go down in that respect. We have a lot of work to do on that front. I think we'll be focusing a lot more on inclusion and diversity at both organizations over the course of the next few years in terms of our programming and in terms of our outreach. The second thing is to ensure that both organizations are financially stable and have a good long-term trajectory and continue to serve this community for generations to come. As I mentioned, COVID has stung us, as it has stung everybody. We are hoping that the community will see the value of the organizations, respond to our fundraisers, engage, and most importantly, come out and become patrons. Go to the shows at the temple. Come visit us at the museum. Support us, and I think we can reach that goal. The third goal is the excellence of both organizations. We like to say at the Saginaw Art Museum, we are a small museum that acts like a big museum, and we are. The quality of the collection we have, the way that it's curated, and our facility are certainly first rate, and we want to make sure that continues, and we want to continue to be a shining light here in Saginaw. The Temple Theater is obviously a jewel. If you haven't been to the Temple Theater, you are missing out. We're going to keep the quality of entertainment there at the highest possible level to serve our Saginaw and broader community as well. So those are my big three. I would say be more of a reflection of our great community, financial stability, and just overall quality of programming at both organizations. That's my focus.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us and your leadership here at the museum and at the temple. We look forward to continuing to do great things and see how we can move forward.
Thank you. And maybe we can do this again sometime when we are kind of coming out of the pandemic and talk about some of the great things we're going to have, some of the exhibitions we have planned, and can't wait to reopen and welcome everyone back.
It's going to be great.
Absolutely.
In this segment, we'll hear from some of our previous guests. Amy Spadaphre, Episode 6, Mary McDonnell, Episode 16, and Tyanna Buie in Episode 17.
This is Amy Spadaphre with Pit and Balcony Community Theater, and I am currently looking forward to season 89. We decided to move forward with our 89th consecutive season as scheduled, and it's going to look a lot different. We're going to have fewer people in the audience, and we're going to see a lot of masks, but we are looking forward to being able to open our doors to our community and of artists and our community of patrons, our family once again. We are also hoping to be able to be creative, to offer virtual programming, maybe some live streams of our shows for those who either aren't yet comfortable coming out to the theater, which is completely understandable, or, just would rather watch at home. So we're hoping to be able to do that kind of stuff. But as we are, we're really excited to be able to move forward with our 89th season, however it looks, because the most important thing is that we're able to serve the community in the best way we know how. And so we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Hi, this is Mary again, and just an update. Things have been going well. I'm working on a lot of paintings and drawings. I finished all the projects that I had mentioned, the collaborative works, when we spoke during our last conversation. Those are all out in the world. That feels good. Also, I'm very shortly going to post a video that I made in conjunction with an exhibition I had earlier this year at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. I called the show Slide, and it featured paintings. And I also worked with the choreographer, and there was a performative dance element. So the video will be on my website, and I'm excited about that one. otherwise, spending a lot of time in the garden and, gosh, hoping this thing leaves soon. Okay, see you.
Hi, this is Tyanna Buie, and what I've been up to since the last time we spoke is I've been working administratively with colleagues, with friends and institutions to see what kind of things we can put out there in the world right now that'll be helpful, especially with what's been going on. So specifically, I'm working with my gallery, the Alice Wilds, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the title of the panel discussion is The Role of the Traditional Gallery Amid George Floyd and Black Lives Matter Protests, What Now? And I think this is a really hot topic conversation because we all are looking at ourselves and saying, what can we do to recognize what's been going on, but also how can we make sure things are better for everyone moving forward? The panelists will include artists, gallery owners, curators, and community arts advocates who care about the art world and the community and even art academia. And how do those two worlds collide in a way that's helpful? And so this content will be posted onto the Alice Wilds Instagram, my Instagram, at the end of July 2020. So I'm interested to see how this dialogue can spark more conversations with everyone across the country and hopefully the world. Thank you.